Shy men of Reddit, how did you meet your girlfriend SO? Story 1. Sitting at home one evening playing WoW. A friend and his wife both text me simultaneously asking what I'm doing. Oh, cow. They tell me they're at the bar and there's a girl there who the wife knew from high school. They've been talking me up to her for some reason. Decided fudge it. I've got nothing to lose. Go to the bar, meet the girl, get invited to a party the following Friday. It's a Halloween party. I show up without a costume because socially awkward. She's the only one there I, sort of, know. Get drunk to ease the nerves. Apparently I'm charming when I'm drunk, because it's now almost 2 years later, and I'm writing this on my phone while lying in bed next to her. Planning on proposing as soon as I can save the rest of the money for a ring. Edit. Just woke up and saw all the responses. Thank you to everyone for all the advice and support, and concern for my WoW guild, apparently. A few answers to common questions. I've felt her out on the ring already. Creeped her Pinterest as one commenter suggested so I know the style I'm looking for. I do like the idea of getting something that doesn't put money into the Diamond Cartel's pockets. Further investigation required. Also, thank you guys so much for the inquiries about helping to pay. That's not what I'm after, but I very much appreciate the thought. The big issue, my raid guild. Sadly, wasn't in a guild at the time. My raiding days ended with vanilla. At that point, I was just tooling around on a low-level character in the Barrens. Nowadays, when I get the MMO itch, I stick to something F2P like Guild Wars 2 or Aladdin Online. Story 2. I'm an extremely shy guy and got to university without ever having had a girlfriend. In my first class, a group of 4, me, 2 girls, and another guy of us sort of became friends, and studied together semi-regularly. We got on reasonably well, nothing amazing though. After that year, the other guy and I stayed pretty good friends and had classes together all through second year as well. In third year, one of the girls happened to be in our classes again, so she sat with us, and since the fourth girl was no longer around, I was forced to interact with her more often than I had in first year, and I realized that she was really cool and had very similar interests to me. She and I quickly became really good friends and hung out loads, and I ended up developing a teeny tiny crush on her, which was irritating because she had a boyfriend at the time. One day, we were hanging out and she seemed a little off, so I asked what was wrong, and she told me she and her boyfriend were considering breaking up. I, of course, played it cool, all the whole running victory laps in my head, but I tried to be supportive and understanding and whatnot. They did end up breaking up, and a week or so later we were texting, and she told me that she had a tiny crush on me, and that was part of the reason that they broke up. I was ecstatic, though nervous, so I tentatively admitted that I liked her too. And then next time we saw each other, we ended up holding hands, and a few days later we ended up making out at uni at about 9 p.m. And I got to touch some balls. Almost 2 years together now. That ended up a lot more rambly and, probably, a lot less interesting than I intended. Sorry! Story 3. Female here, answering on behalf of my boyfriend. He stared at me all semester long from 3 rows ahead of me, and once exam day came, I decided I had enough and was too intrigued. If he wasn't going to talk to me, I'd talk to him. Every single time I'd catch him, he shyly looked away, so I aggressively gave him my number before running off to write the exam, and once he texted me, we hit it off. Turns out he had been trying so hard to gather the courage to talk to me, so he was just ecstatic to receive my number. Funny part is, before handing him the piece of paper saying, "Text me XXXXXX," I was so nervous about walking over to him that I was just playing with it and dropped it at one point. I quickly grabbed it before anyone could see what it was, but he told me he saw me drop it and was going to pick it up and hand it to me. I thought it was hilarious. He would have been picking up my number. Alas, I grabbed it too fast and he hadn't gathered the balls. It's been a year and a half and we're wildly in love. Edit. He didn't stare in a gawking sense. I'd just frequently catch him looking at me, at which point he'd just look away. He didn't post this himself because he doesn't really post at all. I simply had to share though. Story 4. Last year of college. On-campus apartments are co-ed, but only in that neighbors can have the opposite close relationship and not roommates. I get roomed with a girl thanks to something of a clerical error. School tried to force both of us out. We threw a fit about it. Long wait list to get one of the apartments. Only alternative was going back to a dorm room. Meal plan complications. Both of us owned lots of apartment-specific stuff. Whole thing was a cluster, and in the end we both told the school that we didn't give a cow and to let us live in peace. Kind of hard to stay shy around someone you're living with. Became best friends, started having close relationship, then started dating. Have lived together since then. Story 5. Worked at a car shop. Next door was a strip mall and a 7-Eleven was on the end. So all day we'd walk over and grab drinks and snacks. Saw this really cute girl working there one day. Day after day goes by, small talk, figure out a few details, but nothing else. Wanted to ask her out, but it was one of the busiest locations in the city, and I didn't want to have either of us put on the spot with 10 people all around watching. This cow goes on for like 4 months, with me going in as much as 7 times a day. Then one day she's gone. Don't know where she went, but I don't see her again. My heart drops. I figured she moved or went to another location or quit. I kicked myself in the peach for not manning up and asking her after all those visits. A month passes and then all of a sudden she's there again one day. Turns out she was working overnight shifts. I didn't forget what I felt when I thought I lost her forever, so I finally asked her out. I believe my line was, "What would it take for me to get your phone number?" Her response was, "For you to get on your hands and knees and beg?" I didn't know what the hell to say. I think I froze like a deer in headlights. She felt bad for making me lock up like that and just laughed it off and gave me her number. We dated for a week, and then she broke up with me after I bought tickets to opening showing of Talladega Nights. She was acting all funny when I was hanging out in her store trying to talk. I was creeping her on Facebook and she told a girlfriend I was too clingy. So I took my dad instead to the movie. A week goes by and I get a random phone call from her one night. Wants to meet up at Buffalo Wild Wings and explain what happened. So I go, we end up talking for like 3 hours. Come to find out she really wanted to move back to her hometown and was afraid to get seriously attached to me. But when she looked back, she never was with someone like me, and she didn't feel she should ruin it for that reason. So we go back to her place after, and next thing you know, we're exclusive, and then engaged, and then married. And it's been almost 9 years and 2 kids later now. I won. Sorry for the typos if there were any out of time. Story 6. I was looking to buy a bicycle and found an ad matching what I wanted online. So we exchanged a few messages, and on a rainy Sunday I went over to look at it. It wasn't until I called to say I was running late, and she answered, that I realized I was going to be meeting a girl, not a guy. Cow! I hadn't done anything to my hair. It was raining heavily, and I'd been waiting for the bus outside for 10 minutes. I looked like poop. So I arrive, and I'm greeted by one of the cutest girls I've ever seen, and to top it off, she has a really cute dog too. I mumbled some kind of joke about buying a boat instead of a bike. It was raining really hard at this point. And she giggled. We've been together for 2 years and engaged since Valentine's Day 2015. Story 7. I didn't know how to approach girls in high school, but I knew how to doodle. I had a huge crush on this quiet girl who was always either reading or drawing penguins. One day I started passing her unsolicited doodles of penguins dying in a bunch of comical scenarios. Turned out she had a really dark sense of humor and loved it, so we became friends and started dating. However, her friends didn't like me and convinced her to end it after a couple months. The next girl I dated in high school did all the ice-breaking herself. She just sat down and started complaining to me about people being stupid, then asked me what sort of things I liked. We had a lot in common and became best friends. We eventually dated for a couple years, but the passion just didn't last. It's been over 5 years since we met and we're still best friends. I've been through enough embarrassing, awkward moments that I don't get very shy anymore. If I want to get to know a girl, I just talk to her. Story 8. I went to the grocery store and I was wandering around as a single guy trying to figure out what in the hell I was going to get for dinner that did not involve a frozen pizza. So of course I was in the frozen pizza aisle. And there was a girl far outside of my league buying stuff that was not cow food. I said hi as I passed her. She looked at me like I was a moron and walked by. I got my pizza, went to the garden stand area, got some apples so I could feel like I had some kind of nutrition, and went to the checkout. Only one lane was open, and Hot Girl was checking out. She looked back at me. I kind of tried to wave, and she rolled her eyes. She left. I bought my pizza and apples and walked outside to see Hot Girl's grocery bag explode right next to my car. I helped pick stuff up and blurted out, "So can I get your number now?" Dated for 4 years, married now for 5, kid on the way. Story 9. My sister sent me to pick up some Starbucks coffee. This girl, way out of my league, was standing in front of me that looked and smelled amazing. Great hair, great style, petite, and gorgeous. I had this cosmic, overwhelming sense that if I did not say something to this girl, I would kick myself in the peach for the rest of my life. I tapped her in the shoulder and introduced myself, and asked her if it would be okay if I gave her my number. She said okay, and I left thinking that whatever happens, at least I had the balls to try. She called me a day or two later, and we had our first date December 29th, 99, 2 days before the millennium. Together ever since. 2 kids, house, 2 cars, dog. Just talk to her. The rest of your life may depend on it. Story 10. We first really hit it off at a mutual friend's birthday party in high school. I was too shy to ask her out and didn't really think she liked me. On Valentine's Day, I got a secret admirer card in my locker. A friend of mine recognized the handwriting. I called one of her friends, who I was friends with as well, and asked her if I should ask her out. The friend thought that would be a great idea, so I did. We ended up dating in high school, while at separate colleges, and have now been married for 13 years in June. Edit. Clarifications. We dated in high school, I went to college while she was still in high school. She then graduated high school and went to a different college over 3 hours from my school. Just this past June, we celebrated our 13th anniversary. Holy nonsense, thanks for the gold! Story 11. My boyfriend has always been fairly shy and quiet. We met back in high school and had been friends for 4 years before anything happened. He'd always shoot me these awkwardly worded texts, asking what was going on if I wanted to come to his house and watch movies. He was also pretty noobish and wore meme shirts for the better part of our friendship, so I never saw him as boyfriend material, until my ex broke up with me, and I found myself at current BF's house. We'd watch my favorite movies, and he'd sit quietly and let me vent about how terrible my ex was. And then one day we're dry humping on his futon, and he's no longer the nerdy friend. He definitely won the race with Slow and Steady. Story 12. We met in a college course we had together. I thought she was cute and seemed nice and cool, so I paid attention for her name. One day she was wearing a cute hat. It really complimented her, and I told her that after class. We talked on our way out of the building and went our separate ways after she said she had dinner plans. After that, I noticed she would slowly make her way out after class ended so that we would leave at the same time. Then we'd talk about stuff and I'd ask if she had dinner plans. Eventually, we ate together. Once spring break rolled around, we both decided individually to get each other's phone number. That led to a date and the happiest time in my life. Story 13. Oh man, I got lucky. We met at a little get-together with about 20 people. We all met up at TGI Fridays. Wonderful place to meet someone, right? My friend introduced me to her in the parking lot and I was speechless. All at the restaurant, Noon really knew each other. I sat across from her and the guy she was talking to at the time, and I felt a way that I never felt before about a girl. Wow, I don't believe in love at first sight, but God, oh no, was it real. We became good friends the next couple months and eventually started dating. I'm so flipping happy, guys, I can't express it enough. Last night was the first night we slept in the same bed, and no, we just cuddled all night. While I was laying there holding her, I remembered talking to my friend who introduced us that first day and telling him that I thought she was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. That was half a year ago, and now I was actually holding this girl in my arms while she was sleeping in my bed. Holy fudge, I was so happy. Still am happy. I just hope nothing changes when I leave for basic. Story 14. She was the captain of our high school soccer team and stunningly gorgeous. I was a shy choir geek. It was our junior year, and she was easily one of the most popular girls at school. I happened to be standing behind her at the first football game of the year. I had just bought new shoes for school and started asking my best friend what he thought of them. This girl, who I had never had the guts to make eye contact with, looked down at my shoes and then looked up at me and said, "Those shoes are so sweet. Where did you get them?" I blushed hard and stammered out a shaky response. We ended up having 4 classes together that semester and became really close friends. Even though we were in committed relationships with other people at the time, we would still hang out together almost every weekend. 1 year later, after we both were getting over tough breakups, I went over to her house on a Friday night to watch TV with her. I honestly hadn't thought about trying for her before that night. I was still in a stage of shock that she had anything to do with me. That night we locked eyes and I leaned in to kiss her. To my utmost embarrassment, she denied me, and for a brief moment I thought I had lost my dearest friend. I stood up to leave, apologizing and blushing as I did, and turned to go. Something must have come over her too, because she promptly stood up, grabbed my hand, pulled me in, and kissed me for the next 10 minutes. I ended up sleeping over at her house too. Nothing else happened that night, other than a few more kisses here and there. 6 years have come and gone, and she's still here. I am the luckiest guy on the planet. We are so in love and looking to get married this December. Edit, I think I totally blindsided her when I leaned in for the big one. I think she was so shocked that she either panicked or didn't want to ruin what we had. We hadn't really flirted that night, and she was icing an ankle injury she had gotten in a soccer game. It must have been totally unexpected. I don't think either of us knew what hit us. I fell head over heels for her after she kissed me. I didn't want to wax the floor with her because I realized how much I cared for her, and I didn't want to ruin it by rushing anything. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. Story 15. Well, I work at a shoe store. Amongst my friends, I am known to have neutron star density when it comes to noticing girls flirting with me. I was once told, "You're the kind of guy I'd date," and didn't realize she wanted to date until a month later. Well, the other day I was at work and this very shy but very cute girl walks in. I help her out and do my thing, and every time I walk by, she is blushing like mad, even laughing at my poor at work jokes. You need 10-ish shoes? I thought you said 8-ish, so just as I am building the courage to ask for her number, her family walks in. I am feeling done, screwed at this point, so when I'm checking them out, I stealthily slid a piece of paper with my name and number into her left shoe. Somehow it worked. I got a text from her the next day saying how smooth it was. Victory is mine! Story 16. I started doing drama at her school. She started texting me after the play was over. She seemed nice, and I decided I really needed to try out dating, so I asked her out to a movie. That was stressful, but much better after she said yes. We didn't really talk much during the movie, So we went out again later for coffee and a walk. It started raining midway through, but it was still pretty nice. Spoke more, texted a ton more, kept doing stuff, officialized ourselves as a couple. I'm still pretty new at this and I haven't kissed her, but the shyness is mostly gone with her. It's just high school though, we're both new to it. And I don't feel much pressure. That's just high school though, not sure if it helps. Edit. She's away at the moment, minimum 2 weeks before I can follow your advice. Don't worry, I'll kiss her all right? Story 17. I've always been unable to go up to girls and ask them out. The first one I asked in middle school said no, and I got made fun of for it. However, in 11th grade, after a marching band competition, I went over to my friend's house for a party. Now, it wasn't a typical party with a cow ton of people and loud music. It was just a super chill thing with like 10 or 11 people, some I knew well and others I didn't. One of those people happened to be a girl who sat next to me in calculus class. Now, we hadn't interacted at all before other than her asking me a few questions about calc problems in class. When I open the door to my friend's house, I see her standing in the kitchen. She takes a quick look at me, before quickly scurrying off yelling something like, "Oh no, I am Trisket is here!" I have to do makeup. Now, I think she didn't mean for me to hear that last part, but I did. She's kinda clumsy like that. Anyway, everyone goes to do their thing with the candy, but she doesn't breathe. And I didn't want to leave her alone, so I stay behind with her. She keeps pouring me drink after drink before I'm eventually really hammered. Next thing I know, I've fallen on the kitchen floor, and she's on top of me with her lips pressed onto mine. We then cuddled the rest of the night, and have cuddled together almost every night since then. Story 18. I have Asperger's syndrome, technically ASD. I didn't know this when I met my now girlfriend, a then stranger, inside of a bar around 1 p.m. on a weekday, 2 years ago. She sat in the bar stool directly beside mine, and we started making fun of Anthony Bourdain, who was on the big screen at the same time. We hit it off immediately. The conversation lasted 13 hours until we were kicked out just before 2 a.m., state law. She invited me over, and we did what drunk people do in drunk love. The next morning, we sat on her couch and took turns providing narrations for William Shatner in Star Trek Being, with her felt natural and organic all the time. I had never met anyone whom I felt that way about. We made things official. She was 26 and I was 21. I was diagnosed with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, nearly 2 years after we got together. After I told her about it, she revealed that she was advised years ago to pursue an evaluation for diagnosis of what was then known as Asperger's syndrome. Our instant relationship made sense after that. Story 19. Oh, Cupid. Look, ignore that introvert-extrovert stuff. People aren't one or the other, and leaning more towards one doesn't mean you're unchangeably that way. People are always talking about their comfort zones as sacrosanct. My goddamn comfort zone is sitting on the floor with my brother playing Desert Strike in the cottage we lived in 15 years ago. Everything good in life lies outside your comfort zone. Force yourself to do things that scare you. Join a dating site, or have your friends introduce you to people, or find a speed dating event near you. Go on dates. It'll probably suck every bit as much as you fear it will, and you'll be a nervous wreck for the first few, so they'll end terribly. But after a while, it won't be so bad, and after a longer while, you'll start to actually enjoy them. Story 20. This is weird. I met this girl who was a waitress at Steak and Shake. She wasn't our waitress that night. I decided that it would be a wonderful idea to draw dick butt on the plate in ketchup. I was with a friend. Wasn't actively pursuing her yet. Well, the friend I was with knew the girl we had been eyeballing and discussing the whole night. After I left the restaurant and my masterpiece behind, he receives a Facebook message from the girl, and she thought it was hilarious. So, the next time I went back with friends, for moral support of course, I drew dick butt with my number under it. We started talking in February, and we've been together since May 19th. Honestly, it's been the best relationship I've ever been in. She's funny, dorky, beautiful, and I wouldn't trade her friendship for anything in the world. Story 21. I had known this chick since we were kids. We played in the sand together, while our older brothers played t-ball together. Years passed before our paths crossed again. We were the first people at a party a mutual friend was throwing. Mutual friend says, "So what are we getting into tonight?" I replied drunkenly with, "I plan on making out with her at some point." She simply said, "I'm down." I'm one of the shyest people you'll ever meet. This was completely out of my ordinary routine of sitting in the corner quietly. I knew it was now or never. I stood up, walked over, and I kissed her like there was no tomorrow. Everyone was cheering us on. We got married in 2010 and have an 18-month-old son now. Story 22. So this will probably be buried as the question is 7 hours old, but here goes. I met my better half on a Minecraft server. A few years ago, 2012 I believe, I started playing Minecraft, specifically modded Minecraft, TechHit, and what have you. And I became quite popular on the online server I played on, becoming a mod on there and being quite active in chat. At some point, though, a new version of TechIt was going to be released, and all our hard work building was going to end up for naught. So I started giving things away, a gold chest full of coal or 250 diamonds or whatever. One of the people that had arrived to take some stuff off my hands was who would eventually be my SO. But OFC at the time, I did not know it, and wouldn't know until she told me. Because I knew a lot of people were going to be leaving the server, it's hard to stay motivated when all your hard work goes up and breathe. I created a Skype group chat where everyone could just talk. We never used voice or video. It was purely chat. And at one time, it grew to over 50 people. So I get chatting to this girl, and often if I liked the people that joined, I would add them, and perhaps talk privately with them too, so that is what I did. Now, on the server, there were obviously quite a few young boys. And obviously, when there is a girl involved, some young boys will fall in love with her. Naturally, this happened, and 2 14 or so year olds claimed everlasting devotion to her. And as I had tried the whole online dating thing, and the fact she was Finnish living in Germany, one of the first things I had told her was that she shouldn't worry. I was not interested in online relationships and would never fall in love with her. I was wrong. We spoke every single day. I learned many things about her. From the fact she was 6 years older than myself, I was in my early 20s, to the fact she was living with her German boyfriend, who was, not to put it too bluntly, a complete and utter dickhead. I had met her in December, and by February I had urged her to leave him and move back to Finland, as I could see that he was not right for her. I knew I had feelings for her at this time, but never thought anything would come of it due to the different country business. I just did not want her to be stuck with someone that verbally and intellectually abusive. The day she moved back to Finland was the only day in the entire time I have known her that we did not speak. Every single other day bar none we have spoken. But anyway, she lived in Finland for a few months, speaking every day of course, and I was working quite a poor job. I was a store clerk part-time and got between 20 and 4 hours per week, but this was Ireland, and there simply was nothing better. In September, I had my summer holidays from work, and got a nice-ish bonus for it, so we decided that I would come visit for a week. The most nervous I've ever been was making that trip. I don't see myself as very handsome. I am overweight. I was a wreck. And I was flying halfway across the continent to meet this truly stunningly beautiful girl who was and still is the very picture of beauty. I was at a train station waiting for her to arrive by bus, and when she did, I basically abandoned my bags at the side of the road to go and hug her. And that hug lasted 5-10 minutes, just hugging at the side of the road. By this point, I was head over heels in love, and the trip was amazing. She was perfect in every single way and still is. Leaving was the absolute hardest thing I have ever done, and not 2 weeks after being back home in Ireland, I had booked another flight over that left in 2 more weeks. I did not make use of the return flight. I arrived in October 2013 in Finland and have lived here since, happily, with my better half. In July 2014, I proposed to her, and 2 days ago we were married. I have never been happier, and it all started with meeting a girl on a Minecraft server and talking to her on Skype for 10 months. Story 23. You better grab a cup of coffee and get comfy because this is a bit long, but the story needs to be told. I know it'll get buried, but maybe one of you out there may be in the position I was when I was in high school, and this story can inspire you. So let's go back to senior year of high school. I had elected to take AP Human Biology because I wanted college admissions people to look at my transcript and think that I was smart. This would prove to be one of the best decisions I ever made. So there's this girl in my class. She sits ahead of me toward the center of the room while I'm off in the back right corner. One of the things I noticed about her was her hair. It was like really circumflex, really long. Like went down to her butt long. I was kind of taken aback, you know? So I tried to start conversation with her and I was kind of awkward, but she was kind of awkward too. Our relationship turned into this thing where she and I would wait for each other after class to walk. Our class was the second to last of the day. Afterwards, she'd go to be a PE. Leader and I would go with my friend to McDonald's or something, since he and I had the last period of the day open. So we ended up doing this for months, her and I only getting to know each other through these 3-minute walks every day. When my partner or her partner in class would be gone, I would sit next to her or vice versa, and we'd write little notes to each other and flirt. But other than that, our talks were confined to these little walks. On one particular walk, she had come to school that day in a pencil skirt. Something I failed to mention was the fact that this girl had a booty. So the whole time, she'd always wear jeans or dresses or looser skirts, so it had never really occurred to me that this girl was packing. So on this particular day, I noticed she was heavy in the booty department and decided that I wanted to be more than friends with this girl. So I did what any awkward teenager boy would have said. I told her that she looked pretty that day, and I'll never forget her response. Thanks, my dad told me that I looked like a hooker when I left this morning. That little anecdote made me realize that she's cute, attractive, and most of all, she has a sense of humor. From that day forth, I had begun my research, which consisted of Facebook stalking her and talking to all her friends to see what she was like. Given that this was senior year, I didn't know what her intentions were for college. I didn't want to start a relationship with this girl if we weren't going to be a thing for a long time. It'd be like buying a puppy and only keeping it for a month. So I tried to keep my distance. I was afraid that she didn't have feelings for me and I would mess up her senior year by making her fall for me. Fast forward a couple months. My buddies and I are at the mall going to see some movie and we all decided to stop by Panera Bread to get some food. Turn out Dana works there. So of course I'm in line and I go up to her register. I ordered my food and we talked for a bit. I mustered up some courage and ended up inviting her that night to come see the movie with us after she got off of work. We swapped numbers and I grabbed my food and ate. Then it came time for the movie, and I got my ticket and bought us some popcorn and some sodas and waited for her to show up. The movie was about to start and we ended up going without her. I texted her the time and the theater number so she could join us if she was running late, but she never showed. I was sad to say the least, turned down by this beautiful girl in front of my friends. As someone who was rather shy, it made it all the more awkward that my one attempt at love got axed. But I was determined to at least get a date with her, and so I began to text her with the number I got. It turns out that her phone had passed away and her dad had come to get her. She wanted to be sure we were still at the movies. If we weren't, she'd be stuck without a phone at the mall in the middle of the night. So I called her soon after and asked her if she'd want to see Cloudy with a chance for meatballs at our local One Auditorium Theater. She declined, saying that her dad had just cooked dinner and she couldn't go. I pleaded with her to come with me. I told her I'd take her out for dinner afterwards and that she wouldn't go hungry, but she ended up declining nonetheless. So here I was, shot down twice. I couldn't get this girl to go on a date with me, so what other options did I have? Well, remember that AP biology class? That was still a thing, and we had a hard test coming up on the brain. So I again worked up the courage to ask her if she'd want to meet me at our local non-Starbucks coffee shop and study a bit. To my surprise, she said yes. And so here we were, reviewing for this exam. Once we had finished quizzing each other on axons, dendrites, and neurotransmitters, we started getting personal. We ended up talking for so long after that the coffee shop we were in closed. So we moved down the block to the Starbucks and talked for another hour there. We hit it off and my dad ended up coming to get me, and we gave her a ride home. Yes, I thought, I made it in. I had never been happier to be in the friend zone. Now I had a chance to work my way out and into something meaningful. So after the test, we ended up getting coffee again, and the same situation unfolded. We talked for hours, moved to another coffee shop when the first closed down, and when it was time to go, I drove her home. When we pulled up to her house, I told her I had a great time and we should hang out again soon. She agreed, and when we said our goodbyes, I leaned in for the kiss, and in the most awkward fashion possible, she hesitates and I peck her cheek. I felt like such an idiot after that. Maybe I was friend-zoned. I never had many people over to my house. It was nice and all, but it always felt awkward to me. I decided we should have a movie night, and she ends up coming over. We agree on watching Memento, and we sat down on my futon. It was cold on my basement, so I decided that I should grab some covers for us to snuggle up in. She was far away from me, like almost on the other side of the couch, so I told her to not be afraid and move closer to me. Now our legs were intertwined and we were holding hands. In that moment, I wanted to kiss her, so I looked at her. She faced me and I grabbed her and kissed her. She kissed back. It was beautiful. Granted, the whole buildup was almost exactly as awkward as those angsty teenager movies made it out to be. I got my kiss nonetheless. So now comes the problem of prom. I had gone as a junior with another girl, but I hated it nonetheless. At the time, I recognized it for what it was, just a hormone-fueled grind fest. My friend group at the time wasn't the type that went to prom, so I didn't have a group to go with either. But I come to find out through Dana's friends that she wanted to go. I made her think I didn't want to go, but planned out a way to ask her to go with me so she'd be super surprised. I wanted to surprise her and have a ticket to give to her, but I turned out that her and her dad had to sign a form along with my parents to buy the ticket. So the surprise was up, but I had to ask her nonetheless. So I raced to our not Starbucks coffee shop we had hit it off in and gave the ticket to the barista. I told her that I would come in with a girl, and when we ordered our drinks, to serve her ticket in her cup instead of the drink. I raced to her house and picked her up and raced back to the coffee shop. We ordered her drinks and she ordered a pomegranate iced tea. I laughed to myself and thought, little does she know she's getting a pomegranate iced tea. The barista announces that she has 1 caramel vanilla latte and 1 pomegranate iced tea. Naturally, she says yes, and I, bad person. Gotta love those puns. We ended up finding a group to go with, and we had a pretty... After all that fun at prom, we hit it off and started to date through the summer. She ended up getting accepted into University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I was going to a community college near where we lived. I wanted to do a lot with her because if she didn't want to date once she went to college, then at least we'd have had a fun summer. I guess the question on your minds at this point is, did you guys break up? The answer is surprisingly no. We ended up making it work long distance since we were only 3 hours away from each other, and my parents were supportive of us. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gotten all those bus tickets to go down and visit her once a month. I had decided to do chemistry and began searching for good schools, and sure enough, UIUC was one of the top I could go to. I worked my peach off and I made it in. We've been dating for over 2 years now, and we're still... Hope you guys enjoyed reading. Thanks for sticking it out to the end. Story 24. I worked with her. I was just a weirdo candy head who played video games. She liked crafts, traditional domestic things, and talked about her dream of owning property, growing a garden, and living off the land. She was sweet, scatterbrained, and genuine to a fault. I knew right away that she was somehow different from every other woman I had ever met. One day I suddenly realized that I was going to marry her. It came on me like an epiphany. I knew before I even started to court her that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. We weren't even really friends, we just talked when we worked together. I'd only ever been in one relationship before, in high school, and it was a strange and new feeling for me. It's hard to say how I came to this realization, but I did. I told all my friends that it was going to happen, and they thought I was crazy. I didn't care. I bought new clothes, started actually bathing and brushing my teeth, and wrote her poems and short stories to communicate how I felt, because I couldn't say it. One day, she invited me to her Halloween party, and I decided to go. I stayed till the end, and that night we shared some intense emotional tales with one another. We didn't have close relationship, but we fell asleep together in her bed. In the morning, she pulled back. She said that I was sweet and naive and she could never really love me. She said that she had slept with so many men, and I was just a boy. She said that she was broken and stupid and would only end up hurting me, so it would be better if we never got together. I remember this moment so keenly because it was the moment I became a man. I put a hand on her cheek and said, I don't care about any of that. I've been afraid my whole life. Hurt me if you have to, I can take it. I'm here, and I'm not going to go anywhere unless you tell me to leave. It was honestly the first moment in my life when I'd really put my heart on the line. A few days later, we got together again, but I had lost all my confidence. I was a mess. I just didn't know how to be a man yet. Everything was weird. She saved me. She knew what I was going through. She hugged me and told me to forget everything and remember what I'd said. I did. The first few months of our relationship were rocky and hectic. She was used to being with tough alpha males who knew what to do and imposed themselves. I was hesitant and quite frankly a little weepy. We didn't have close relationship for months. I just wasn't ready. When we started having close relationship, I quickly found that her close relationship drive and her desire for kinky stuff was way over my head. I couldn't keep up. I felt impotent. We had long conversations where I tried to explain to her that for me, close relationship had to mean something, had to be full of affection and love. She was bewildered. I might as well have been boy. It was very hard. She really didn't think it would last. I was too sweet and passive and naive. She wanted someone who would hold her down and fudge her, and I couldn't do that. I struggled emotionally. I was convinced that I was doomed. I contemplated suicide, and at one point actually experimented with cutting myself. I never kept anything from her, though. We talked through it. I bared every inch of my soul, and she bared every inch of hers. We really saw each other. We realized that we came from such different places, and decided that there was no use worrying. The only thing we could do is see where it went. For the first 2 years, I cried myself to sleep almost every night because I was so scared to be myself all the time. I struggled with authenticity every day. I knew I had to be myself, be honest, but it was so hard that the strain of resisting the urge to slip away made me completely raw. She never coddled me. She wasn't repulsed by my weakness, but she never reinforced my self-pity. She just waited for me to straighten myself out and then did her best to welcome me back. I'm so grateful for it now, looking back. Most women would have given up. God help men like me. She went through a parallel transformation, but she handled it with much more grace. She wasn't sure about us for the first few years. It took time. She'd been let down so many times. She's an angel, really. Neither of us can really believe how lucky we are, and we've never forgotten how unlikely a couple we were. We've been together now for 7 years, and we're getting married in 2 weeks. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. We fit together completely, because we have shaped ourselves through untold hardships and delicate moments into something bigger than either of us. I remember when I was young, I always fantasized about a relationship so complete that it was like one person in 2 bodies. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. We want to have children. If I had one piece of advice to give any other shy men, it would be this. Find a partner who is gentle and kind, with a simple and generous heart. Someone with a simple and generous heart who is strong enough to keep you honest and doesn't let you wallow or be weak. Someone who believes in you. And don't let that person down. Moments will come when it's easy to give up. Don't. Fight. Find your strength. You are stronger and more capable than you know. Make a choice. Keep making it. Over and over again. Every day when you wake up, make that choice again. Finding love and true companionship in this world is the hardest thing I have ever done, and it's as hard today as it ever was. Every day I wake up and make the choice to be a man and not a boy. I fall down every day, but every day it's easier to get up again. If you're a shy man reading this now, know that I believe in you and know that there is someone out there ready to believe in you too. Don't take the easy way out. Don't give up. Story 25. The girlfriend here. I met him in a fiction writing class that I was taking with some friends and thought he was very pretty. One day, before our first major story assignment was due, I saw him in the engineering building. I sat down next to him and struck up conversation about our stories. I ended up proofreading his, and then he bought me a crepe to make up for it. That led to a friendship. I introduced him to my friends in the class, and he ended up living in a house with them the next year. He met his best friend through them. For the next year, I still saw him at events with that group of friends. I would flirt with him, and he would blush and pretend not to notice, and sometimes genuinely did not notice. It became a joke and escalated over time. I would make lewd advances at him, and he would laugh, brush them off. By then, I really liked him, and I was pretty sure he wasn't interested, but I needed to hear an actual no from him so I could put it out, hide my mind, and move on. So I got him to meet me alone, laid my cards on the table, and asked him. The air turned cold. He said nothing for a really long time. He was the image of panic. I backpedaled. It's okay, dude. You can say no. I've heard no before and I can hear it again. I just need to hear it from you if you're not interested. It's not that I don't want to. He literally slid out of his chair and his under the table. It's just that I don't. People don't like me that way. Yes, they flipping do. What is this about? I already knew he was a 24-year-old virgin, so I'd expected some nervous weirdness, but not at the hiding under the table angsting level. I ended up joining him under the table to talk with him for a couple hours about what exactly he and I each wanted, and what exactly he was so scared of. He wanted to go slow. I had expected that. Eventually, he let me touch him, and that was enough for me to be on cloud 9. Later that night, I asked if I could kiss him. The moment his lips touched mine, a switch flipped, and the nervousness and terrified insecurity was gone. It was like Jekyll and Hyde. It was amazing. He became an animal in the best way imaginable. We've since fallen in love and things are great. We get along really well, and he's made up for lost time with close relationship. That boy has no refractory period.